How you doing, guys? BJ on GameDay, Bogan here. Just got Brent Hampton on the line. We're going to do a bit of a chat about draft. Probably the easiest way to do this is we're just going to have a bit of a casual chat about it. I don't have a fucking clue how draft works or what tactics to use or anything like that. So Brent's going to give us a few tips.
Yeah, how are you, Bogan? Sounds good. We'll run through, obviously, the BJ League as well, a few of the details about that. But yeah, I guess there's a little bit of different approach with draft comps if I haven't played before. There's no salary cap. So basically all it is each player is mutually exclusive, so there's only one of each player. And once you pick that player up, if you choose to hold him, he is yours for the duration of the competition. So, you take that with the good and the bad if they get injured or ton up, you cop all the good and the bad. So it makes it pretty interesting, a bit of a different dynamic. Obviously, with the draft itself is a lot of fun with the draft leagues, and there's some different methods to the draft itself, and there's some advantages to being a first pick, but there's also some advantages to being a ladder pick, depending on what type of draft you do. But
mate,
I think the VJ League will have a few people playing draft for the first time. I myself have probably played draft comps for 5 or 6 years, something like that. I really enjoy it, especially the draft, but also just that different dynamic with no salary cap and the ability to do team trades and the free agent pool. So plenty of elements to it, mate, but it's pretty much just one of those things you just got to jump in and have a go, and you learn as you go. So
you mentioned the free agent pool. How does that work?
So basically, if you start from the top, you'll have a draft. You can select. There's a few settings. They're predefined in terms of the number of players you can have in your team. That's set up by the league. Person that sets up your league creator, admin, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And that's generally going to be a 14-player team or a 17-player team, and then the makeup of those 14 or 17 players in terms of you'll have like a scoring, say 13 players, and then an NPR and non-playing reserves of 4 potentially, and essentially the draft. If you've got an 8 or a 10-man, 12-man, whatever it is, you'll do the draft, fill all those spots as you need to, as best you can, and then anything left over is what we would call a free agency pool. So there's still going to be a great number of players still left in there. There'll be some guys that no one's even thought of yet that'll end up having a breakout year, or there'll be a rookie that debuts mid-season, that sets the world on fire. And essentially that free agency pool is there for people to use as they need. You have one of you got your top picks that you've picked up does an ACL, gone for the season. And you're not going to be able to use them again. You might dump them into the free agency pool and have to pick someone up. And with that, there comes I guess the hardest thing to explain with that is there's generally a waiver period that goes attached to the free agency pool in most leagues that you'll have. And essentially what that is just a way of, giving priority to who gets first pick from the free agency pool each week. It's not just open slather. As soon as you see someone in there, you can pick them up. If the round's already started, you can't pick up a player that's already played. And then once all teams have completed games over the game week, say there's a young guy that tons up that in the centre wings and you're really short in your centre wings, you might want to jump on him. Generally what will happen in most leagues is you'll have this waiver period where for 24 hours, anyone can go in and look at the players in the free agency pool. You can also pre-set up some trades. So, your deadline, I think, in the past it's been 4 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. The deadline lifts, and basically any of those preset free agency trades will kick in. And the purpose of the waiver sort of order is if 2 guys are trying to bring in the same free agent, it uses the waiver priority list to determine who gets that player. For instance, Bogan, if it's, say, me and you are trying to pick up the same guy, the waiver priority list might be determined based on, whoever's coming last on the ladder at the time is highest at the list. So trying to promote, the weaker teams to be able to get a bit stronger.
Yeah.
Or what we're doing with the BJ on Game Day League is it'll be the last pick, so the person that had the first priority from the previous round goes to the bottom. But yeah, it only matters when you're trying to pick up guys where there's more than one person trying to pick up the same player. Yeah. Basically, after a round's already finished, going into the Monday. Once the waiver period sort of ends at that 4 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, if the free agency pool becomes, I guess, live and any trades you make are instant up until the first game of that next round on the Thursday, for instance. And any trades you make then are instant. So if there is a guy that everyone's missed or someone a bit of a smoky, you think, I'll take a punt, you jump in there on the Wednesday, trade one of you guys out of your 17 or whatever and bring that free agent in. That free agent is yours. And then the player you dump will generally have a bit of a hangover period of maybe a day, another waivers period where no one can pick them up straight away. There might be a period of time where they're subject to the waiver. Okay. So it's a little bit hard to explain. That's probably one of the trickiest parts of it.
Yep.
But it is one of those things.
But there's no player pricing involved.
No.
So that changes your tactics for your picks almost completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's also important, generally I like to do what we have the snake draft. So you'll have pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, say 7, 8. In our case, we've got 10 runners. So it'll be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 order. And we used obviously the 9s to determine that order. We'll talk about that a little bit soon. But what then happens in the second round, so you could argue, if pick 1 gets whoever they want, because, they can choose from every single player. Pick 2 can go everyone but whoever the pick 1 went. And poor old pick 10 only gets one of their top 10. But the difference with that is that pick 10 gets 2 of their top 11, whereas pick 1 only gets 2 of their top 20. So it levels out in the end, and that's continuous over the draft. So, pick 1 will get 2 of their top 20, but they get 3 of their top 21.
So ideally you want it to be 5th and 6th.
Yeah, look, I've played a lot of drafts, and I don't like being early picks. I don't like being first or second, because I just think there's a bit more of an advantage being in the middle or ladder, especially early on. I know you get whoever you want basically early, but I think the value you get in getting sort of back-to-back picks or 2 sort of stronger players in the top 10 or top 15 is worth a little bit more to you. And the other thing that happens with draft that's, you can't be understated is it's all about context. So if, you're looking at your team, you might have picked Damien Cook if you're an early pick, and then all of a sudden, you don't get another pick for 18, 19 picks, but a lot of the good halves are gone or a lot of the good fullbacks are gone. You've got to make decisions about, okay, do I need to go for the best fullback left? Do I write it off, try and go a roughie? Do I focus on trying to make my forward pack stronger? There's just some different elements to it, and you sort of got to weigh up, what's going on in your draft as what's best to do. So it can be a little bit hard to strategize. But at the end of the day, it's all about scoring points still.
Yep.
Your guns still are your guns, and you want the guys that are scoring the most points, but you do have to obviously, there's no point picking 2 hookers early on in your draft because, you're not going to be able to play them both. You only have 1 scoring hooker. So, yeah, and, it's funny, you might have 4 picks in front of you and you think, all right, beautiful, I'll be happily have any one of those, these 4 blokes, and then those next 4 picks in front of you take all those ones that you said you would have been happy with. That happens a fair bit, and all of a sudden all your best laid plans fall to pieces, and you got to think quick on your feet, and you sometimes make rash decisions in the moment and just think, what was I doing? But it's all good fun. Really enjoy the drafts, and obviously the free agency pool is there where, if you made a couple of stinkers in the draft, which will probably happen, if you're playing in a draft before Team List Tuesday, you can probably make it up by jumping into that free agency pool and picking guys up once team lists are out. But it is important to try and be on that if you want to be a competitive player and I guess be good. You got to be on top of those guys. You think of guys in the past, last season like Britton, Okora, Bronson, Jerry, guys like that who were pretty much unknown. But if you got on those guys early in draft, you set yourself up pretty good because they end up being, guns in their first season. So yeah, it'll be different for you, Bogan. Obviously, you haven't played anything like this before, but I know, our BJ on Game Day Draft League, there's quite a number of blokes that haven't played. So I don't think Marty's done one. Kando, Mana, Ted's played a bit of draft before. I was talking to Teddy on the weekend. So Joshy's, relatively new to the draft domain. So should be good, but yeah. You have the ability to do team trades, so there might be some strategy that you choose to employ while you're drafting, where you go, okay, well, I fucked up my centre wings, or I needed a good back rower, and you might actually pick up, 2 good fullbacks or 2 good hookers with a plan to potentially go and try and negotiate with another team to make a team trade where someone has a weak hooker for one of their better forwards, or something like that. So there's some different strategy you can employ depending on where you're at, but I'd strongly encourage, if you haven't played draft before, jump in, have a play. It's good fun with your mates, plenty of banter, and obviously bragging rights if you get the job done at the end of the year.
Oh, fair enough. So going back to their not being a player value attached to them, so you don't have to worry about the financial aspect. What would your strategy be? Are you going all out looking for guns, or?
Yeah, so I think you got to.
Or are you going to try and take a gamble on some unknowns and hope that you get an emerging pod that no one has picked up on?
Well, I think this is half the beauty of it. Is I know blokes that'll just go wild with trying to pick those outside backs early, and those guys that can have that blow up potential, that high ceiling, that can score big, that blow drafts wide open. If you've only got 13 scoring players, or some drafts will only have 10 scoring players in the scoring positions on each game week. If you get a guy who gets a ton or 150, it really blows it wide open, especially if you're playing captains. We aren't playing captains in the BJ Game Day League. I haven't played in a draft without captains before, so that should be something different. But, there's been plenty of times where in the past guys have, absolutely just smashed someone in the first couple of games of a round because they've VC'd a semi-Radradra who's got 150, and all of a sudden they've had another bloke get 80 or 90. They've had 2 or 3 players play and they're on 450, 500 points, and it's pretty much all over. So I've decided to not have captains to see how it goes. From what I've heard, it's a better way to do the draft. But with that being said, I think that's the beauty of it. As I said, with the strategy, do you try and load your forward pack up and have those guys that are generally more consistent scorers and try and knuckle down your solid average score each week, or do you employ a strategy where you go, okay, look, I'm not going to win every week, but I've got a team that can win. If they get it right on any particular day, I can pull it out of the bag. You got to weigh up what your league settings are in terms of finals and how many teams will play finals, because you can't afford to lose too many games. If, for instance, we'll have 10 runners in the BJ Game Day League and we will only have the top 5 of those playing finals, so you can't afford to perform too poorly, because if you miss the finals, well, then it's no good to you. Mm-hmm. And there's plenty of woulda, coulda, shouldas like there is with Classic, where the week you get knocked off and then the next week your team, everyone scores hundreds and you would have won and then went on to win the grand final. I hear those stories every year in every draft I play in. So woulda, coulda, shoulda, but didn't. And it's up to you, I guess. You'll see early picks. Obviously, I think your first 8-10 picks will be the usual culprits, your Teddies and your Turbos and your Cooks and your Haases and those sort of guys.
So what effect does your buy rounds have on draft?
Yeah, so essentially you can choose to either play through buys or skip buy rounds. We've employed the skipping of buy rounds in ours. Okay. I've played in, there's one comp I'm in, I've run with some mates for about 5 years now, and we always play through it. That's just how we've always done it, and it sort of takes away from it because it's just such a chook raffle at the end of the day. Your team's just obliterated depending on what's going on, and you can't really, it's not really too much fun if you're trying to account for the buys while you're trying to do draft. You don't it's hard enough as it is without that sort of thing. So we're not going to play through buys. You have that option to play through or not. But if you play through them, if you do actually want to play through the buys, you could be faced where you've got all your Origin players and then you've got all these guys that are out because they've got the buy, and you might have 1 or 2 or 3 players in your team and get done by 600-700 points, and that 1,000-point buffer you've built up over the previous 10-11 weeks just goes, and all of a sudden you're on your head. So it makes it interesting, but yeah, we're not going to do it for the draft league.
So for us, there is no strategy for buy rounds.
Just hope you blokes don't get injured in Origin. Yeah. Guys tend to get rested generally, depending on the turnaround the next game week. That'll be the only thing that'll affect us is guys getting rested and what happens when they play that standalone Origin weekend the following week. Yeah, so originally we were going to have a 14-man teams with 10 scoring players on the in your scoring round each week. I've actually upped it to 17, so we'll have 13 scoring players with 4 bench NPRs. That's just because I did a draft a couple of nights ago, and it's just a bit of fun doing the draft, and I figure why shorten it. Essentially, your scoring 13 makeup will be the same as what your 13 on your field are in Classic Supercoach. So you'll have your hooker, 2 front rowers, 3 back rowers, a half, a 5'8", 4 centre wings, and a fullback. They're your scoring 13 each week, and then you can have 4 players on your bench that you can choose to make up in any way that you like. So whether you want to have cover in, maybe you pick a guy who's a dual front row, second row, so you've covered 2 positions there. You might try and pick up a guy who's a dual halfback, 5'8", or 5'8" fullback, or whatever it is to cover those positions. Or you might pick up a centre winger / fullback who can cover a couple of positions. And couple that with having guys in your starting 13 that have duality. It means you can do some things where you generally are pretty good to have coverage if you decide to go down that avenue, because you'll find that you'll always generally in your 13 have a dual positional player that then makes having all your other duals on your NPRs work a bit nicely as well. So you might find that you've got, a halfback that's only a halfback in your scoring 13 on your starting side, and then you've got a 5'8" who's a 5'8" and a halfback. But then if you've picked a guy on your bench that's a 5'8" / fullback, in theory you can put that your starting 5'8" into halfback, move that guy that's a 5'8" fullback, if you're still following me, into 5'8", and it gives you options each week. You're not necessarily going to want to play the same. If you've got some rough sort of picks or some guys that aren't premiums or guns, there might be some weeks where you're playing on the matchups. So there might be a guy you're not playing every week in your 13, but they might be playing the Titans who, assuming they're going shit, or, they hit some form or something like that, and you've taken a punt on them, that you might choose to bring in a week to try and give you a good matchup that week.
Okay. So currently the auto pick has Teddy and Cookie at the top of everyone's draft pick. Do you think that's an accurate reflection of how the drafts will go? And who are some of your top players that you reckon will be up there?
So my understanding is that auto draft list that you'll see when you log in once you're in a draft league is ordered based on average, from the average score from last season. So I would have thought you've probably got Teddy, then probably Haas or Turbo or someone up there. I think Teddy and Haas were our top averages last season.
I think Turbo's a bit further down because he had injuries or something like
possibly.
that.
Your top five is generally going to be Teddy, Haas, Turbo, Tamalolo, Cook.
It might have put Cook up there for me because I selected Rabbitoh's supporter. So
no, it shouldn't do that. The only time it's going to do something is if you're touching it.
Okay, Cook was up there though.
Yeah, so you might have just moved him up a little bit. Like, you can tinker with that.
It's all right. Mine arm out straight to the top.
Yeah, and basically what that's for is if you happen to not be able to make your live draft, you might be someone, there's some leagues out there I know of where they just don't do the live draft. They set up a pre-draft list and just see what happens, which, that's quite interesting. I haven't done anything like that before, but it sounds pretty cool. But I don't think I could plan that well. But yeah, if you, for instance, get kicked out or your connection freezes or something like that, it might be handy to just sort of have that list in mind as a contingency in case something does happen, where if you get booted, you go, okay, I'm okay if I get one of these, next 3 players at the top of my list, which you might actually do, while you're actually doing the draft. I tend to not touch it because I've had issues in the past where I've hit the wrong button and it's sorted the list wacky, and then I had issues picking players, so it's put me off it, but I'm sure it's improved since then and you'd be fine. But that's just the purpose of that. So it'll just take the next player at the top of that list if you don't make a pick once the timer runs out on your pick.
Okay. So obviously players like Teddy, Turbo, they're all going to be hot property, probably round 1.
Yeah, all your usual suspects. I think you're going to have, they pick themselves. It's a bit harder, I think, being 1, 2, 3, 4. Because who do you go? Do you go Teddy? Do you go Turbo? Do you Cook, Haas, Tamalolo, Cleary, Hut, Sheck, Ponga? Who do you go in that first 5 or 6 picks? Generally, by the time it gets to 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 picks, it starts to pick itself a little bit more easily for you. And I think if you're pick 10, again, you're like, okay, there's only these guys left. They're still guns, and you're going to get 2 of them, and it's a bit easier to pick. Mm-hmm. As I said, I think it does get interesting those first sort of 4 or 5 picks for everyone, because that's where you start to see all the quality disappear generally, and then it starts to get a bit more strategic in terms of, who do you know is not sitting at the top of the averages list, and who are you got your eye on that might have a breakout season, or the forgotten, whoever it was. But yeah, early on you'll see your usual culprits. I'd imagine you'd be mad if you're not going, like I said, a Teddy or a Haas or a Lolo or a Turbo in one of those early picks. If you're going anyone else, you're taking a punt. Like I said, someone might, me as a Knights fan, do I take a punt on Ponga this season? You could argue you could, but I think a couple of those other guys are just a bit more consistent and consistently scoring high. That's a bit more of a risk, but if you're someone pick 7, 8, 9, 10, Ponga's a much, I guess, more natural pick because he is a gun, but you're not taking a risk in trying to go, okay, do I go him over a Teddy or a Cook? Because it's a different decision at that stage if you're having to try and make that call.
So where would your focus be? Second row forwards, much like the Classic, or...?
I generally will try to have...
Not without giving away your secrets ahead of the draft. Who are you picking first, Brent? So I can just take that
I definitely don't
list.
want to lose. I'll be keen to win any drafts that I play in, don't get me wrong, but I'm also not I'm not playing for sheep stations. So, look, I will generally go for a good balance in my squad. I don't try and, stack a particular position heavy. I think there's arguments to be made that you can go down that line. Do you just worry about trying to get those outside backs and your halves and your fullbacks that just blow up and hope that they get it right at the back end of the season for you? You got to think the hooker position, for instance, even for argument's sake, the fullback position, there aren't a heap of top quality in there. There's not a great deal of quantity in terms of that quality, if that makes sense. So, if you don't get one of those guys like a Cook or a Smith, or, you look at what happens with McInnes now, and you've got a couple other hookers that you could go. But if you don't nail in that hooker position in the first few picks with someone decent, I would argue you probably don't worry about it, till a little bit later. Mm-hmm. Because there's no point wasting an early pick on a guy that might only average 40 or 50 if you could pick up an outside back, that averages 60 or 60 or have the higher ceiling. So there's arguments to be made. I try to get a good balance. I might try and go, I'm going to be an early pick in our BJ league. I'm always going to look at Cookie early because of he holds that hooker position and he does have a high ceiling and he's generally pretty consistent. And then that's that position sorted. Obviously there's Origin, but then I don't have to worry about hooker unless there's an injury, obviously. If Joshy, for argument's sake, takes Cook, then I reckon it's a harder sort of decision because you've got to then go, do I go Haas, do I go Lolo, do I go Teddy, do I go Turbo? And I don't know, Teddy's a bit of a different prospect this season as well with the departure of Cronk, and obviously the Trell's moved on. Is Teddy the same guy? Mm-hmm. I'm probably more comfortable to pick him up in draft than I am Classic, because Classic he's very expensive. But, just those sorts of things, I will generally try and go, a couple guys I like that are guns, and it doesn't matter early on exactly where they are. But then those next 3-4 picks, those guys that are coming into your side 3, 4, 5, I'm trying to sort of balance it out a little bit. I think it's good to have a bit of a mix of your consistent scorers, so your forwards, your back rowers, your guys that, you could argue your Gerbos, your Arrows, your Taumalolos, your Payne Haases that are going to get you your bread and butter each week, your 60, 70 points through their base, just hit ups and tackles. And mix that with some guys with X factor and that blow up potential that, throw a spike in with 100 or 120 with you guys like turbos and that sort of thing. You're not going to get I'd be surprised if you ever end up getting a guy like Lolo and Turbo, but you might get Lolo and Cleary, or you might get Turbo and Arrow, or Cookie and Mitch Moses, things like that. So, for me, I go balance, but I couldn't criticise anyone for stacking positions. There was a draft, a couple of strong teams in the draft I did last night, where there was a guy who ended up picking up, I think it was Gerbo, David Fafita, Payne Haas, which was a really strong forward pack, which I thought, that looks good. But you scroll down, to the lower half of his team, and his backline's fairly diminished, but he's got guys in there who can spike. But they're not consistently, scoring 60, 70. They're guys that might get 20 or 30 one week, 80, 90, 100, once a month or something like that, depending on form. Whether that works or not, it just comes down to that week-to-week thing. And obviously, if you're playing finals, what happens in those weeks obviously determines everything. So,
okay. So, in the Classic, most people, and I'm sort of trying to, because Classic's what everyone knows, we all consider it a fairly good week if we ton up. What sort of score would you be looking at in a draft? Would you be looking at something that's lower would be a good score, or higher?
Yeah, again, it just depends on the number of players you're going to have scoring each week. So generally it'll be 13 scoring players, so 4 less than Classic. Again, are you playing captains? Are you not? I've played in captain 13 scoring players with captains for pretty much all drafts I've ever played in. And if you can crack 1,000, that's a pretty good score. I have seen 1100s. I don't know if I've seen a 1200. There might have been the odd one, but if you're cracking 1,000 or 1100, that's a really good score in a 13-man captained league. For us, we're not going to have captains, so I'd imagine 700, 800 is probably going to be a par. 600 to 800 is probably going to be your average sort of scores most weeks, but we'll see guys that probably get 850, 900, maybe 1,000, depending on what happens, and that would be a really good score without captains. But that gives you a rough indication. 1,000 points with captains is a fairly solid score, and you'd be hard done if you got beaten scoring 1,000 in draft in that sort of format.
All right. Well, have you got anything else to add, or?
Mainly just the BJ League, mate. Obviously, we ran the Nines comp where we gave everyone a team, which I was getting my character assassinated the hell out of, and I never got a right or reply since. But obviously, I took the Eels, and we all gave everyone a team, and it didn't really matter. I think I just, I told everyone that I talked to. Corruption.
You see, what you did is you picked the Eels to hide the true corruption from Joshua King, who took the Cowboys. Because you obviously had some inside information about what was going on at that Mickey Mouse tournament. And,
can I just say,
you got yourselves 1 and 2 in the picks.
In my defence, I said to, I think it was you, or I even said to other people that, once my character was assassinated by yourself and Joshy in one of the previous videos. I'll take the Titans, and had I taken the Titans, I would have got the same result. I think out of all the teams that everyone picked, the Titans would have given me the same outcome. But yeah, as it turned out, obviously me and Joshy picked 1 and 2. Joshy had the Cows, and the Cows got the job done over the Dragons and the GF, and I had the Eels, who started slow early but managed to stumble over the line and make it to the semis.
We should probably mention the Dragons because all of our team previews that we've been doing are obviously pre-recorded, so we've actually done them a fair amount in advance, but fair few injuries for the Dragons at the Nines.
Yeah, obviously Cam McInnes was a big one for them. He's, the captain of the club now and a really good player. He was sort of coming of age, I reckon. This was hitting his prime, so it'll be a big loss. I think it's 12 weeks they'll be without him, so that's quite big. And again, pretty vital position, the old hooker, for Supercoach as well as for a club side. They have picked up Isaac Luke, and that, I guess, has now turned out to be quite fortuitous.
There's a huge question mark on Isaac Luke, though, whether he still
has
much to offer.
How fortuitous is that pickup now? Because whether you like it or not, he's a genuine hooker, and whilst his age is probably getting the better of him, I think that it's worked out all right for them. But also in regards to some of those injuries, obviously had Dufty. I think they reported at one point Ashton Sims broke his arm, but that didn't actually end up being the case. But yeah, obviously in that controversy as well with the Panthers, against the Panthers, where that try was given to young Cody Ramsey, who had a blinder of a tournament. But that was footy's back, isn't it, when you see that sort of stuff? Anyway, so Josh, you'll be pick 1, I'll be pick 2. Teddy will be pick 3. You'll be pick 4. Mm-hmm. Then pick 5, I think, was Marty. Was it Marty?
It's Big Ginge. It's pinned in the comments of the video where we talked about it. So
I think it was Ginge, then Marty, then Bundy, then Hell's Grannies, then Kando, and then Checkmate. So that's our draft order. We'll be drafting on Sunday night, the 8th of March at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standards Time. It'll be a snake draft. No captains, 17-man teams. I've updated that league setting with 13 scoring players. And I reckon I'll come up with something for the winner. We might do, I don't know, I'll have a think. We're going to have something for the inaugural draft champion.
They get a graphic, I don't know, something that doesn't cost us money. We don't get paid to do this shit.
Yeah, obviously we'll have a think anyway. And obviously we'll do our best to live stream the draft as well, Bogan. We'll be relying on your expertise
that'll
for
be
that.
On Twitch, so there'll probably be. I might even get in contact with your good self and see if we can place a rugby league live or something like that on Twitch beforehand, just to test out that.
Yep, sounds good, mate. And we'll I think we got a long weekend here, so
we do have.
We'll be able to have a few sherbets on the Sunday night. So.
Yes, we will. But that will be a big week for BJ and Game Day. Because obviously we'll have the draft on the Sunday night. Then on the Tuesday night will be the first team list Tuesday, in which the team reveals for yourself and Josh will be up. And you'll be able to give your advice on the rookies and the cheapies that'll be playing in week 1. So that'll be a big show. And then obviously, come Thursday night, the season starts proper.
Yeah, it's all going to happen pretty quick. I think I think we've got 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it's back, baby. So yeah, it'll happen pretty quick. I mean, I would personally love to do a team reveal before Team List Tuesday because it's quite easy after Team List Tuesday, but I don't think we'll have the time. We've got lots of content, obviously, lined up and plenty still to sort of come out.
There'll still be the team previews coming out for those that want to watch those. That's just to keep the content running along. We're trying to get everyone hyped for the season proper. So once we start hitting the season proper, I'll be actually quite glad when we go back to one show a week instead of one show every 2 days. Coming up in between now and the draft stream. Joshy wants to do a fixer-upper episode where he looks at some people on Facebook's Supercoach teams and provides advice on how they can fix them up and get them running a bit better. So I'm sure if he's still keen for that, he wants to put a 2-minute time limit on it. It's like, mate, I don't know if you'll be able to do that. Like 2 minutes to go through someone's team, and it's not very long.
No, you probably dedicate maybe 3 to 5, and even that'd be doing it pretty skimmy.
Yeah.
And you could do a few, I reckon.
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
The only other thing. So we'll have obviously BJ Draft League. We'll have the Invitational League, which I think is already full, and obviously we'll announce the public sort of league where we'll release the code and it'll be first in, best dress. We've also got the group code, which Bogan, maybe you can just chuck it in here somewhere.
It's linked in the description of every video, but I'll chuck it across your face right now.
Somewhere here?
Yeah, I'll put it exactly where you point at it. There's going to be a BJ on GameDay all-in league, which essentially Joshy will announce the code in one of our videos, and it's first in, best dressed. So it'll be me, you, and Josh, obviously. But then the remaining 17 will be made up by whoever can get that draft league. I'm fucking obsessed. Who can ever get that league code entered in and into that league first. So there's also that one.
Sounds good. And yeah, I think as Josh, you mentioned before, if you've got any leagues you want us to jump in, I'm in 5 at the moment. If we do the all-in league, that'll make 6, and I might have another one. So I've probably got a few spare leagues. If there's a league you want myself, even you, Bogan, or Joshy to jump in, let us know. Chuck it in the comments. Even draft. I think you can have five draft leagues in your user. So I think I'm in about 4 at the moment. Plus I do an NRL.com draft. So if you want me to jump, I think I got one draft league I could jump in if anyone wants me to jump into a draft league.
I'll just stick to one draft. But if you want some cannon fodder to fill out the lower half of your competition, sure, you can ask me to be in there. I'm only in the I'll only be in the 3 because obviously I do a public league every year just so I have a chance.
Oh look, and I'll be honest. Obviously, guys like myself and obviously Joshy and plenty of guys out there love it, and I really enjoy the draft. So yeah, I do 4 or 5 drafts, and it seems like a lot, but it's obviously a hobby of mine. So something I can do sitting on the lounge while the kids are playing and whatever. So I tend to manage it, but it can get quite full on when you're doing that many drafts plus trying to manage your classic team. But once you're actually doing a draft, I think I quite enjoy the draft, so it doesn't really bother me. But
I'll tell you what, I'll lay the challenge to you now for our Twitch. Oh no, because it'll be before. Damn, I was going to say we'll do our draft teams in NRL live on Twitch.
Yeah, no, you couldn't do it, could you?
Because it's before. But maybe that's something for down the track. We'll do our teams against each other in Rugby League Live.
Run a tournament and simulate Twitch. A tournament and see what happens.
But,
so do you reckon for the draft itself, obviously we have to figure out some of the logistics of how it'll work, but do you reckon we'll be co-located, or will I jump sit with you, do you reckon?
You can do that if you want. We're going to have to try things out though, because we had that echo problem.
Yeah.
Obviously your mic, when you were sitting across the room from me, was picking up me talking, and my mic is actually quite sensitive, so it was picking up you as you were talking. So we'll probably have to, I don't know, I'll set up the spare room or something like that.
Teddy, I was also talking to Teddy on Facebook over the weekend, and he had suggested I can't recall the name of it, but I'll have a look in the messages. Discord, was it?
Yeah, and I said to him that I can't get you fuckers to work Twitter. How the fuck am I going to get yous on Discord?
Okay. Oh, well, anyway, I'm doing my due diligence.
Boomer Skype is fucking easy. But yeah, if we want to invest, I'll talk to Josh about it. We want to investigate Discord, but the Skype is better for the video, at least.
Oh, I think that's it, Bogan. Make sure you jump on, like, subscribe, hit notifications, share it around to your friends.
I have no fucking idea what next team preview will be out by the time we do this. We're currently up to the Parramatta Eels, which hopefully me and Josh will be filming later tonight. So.
Oh, and can I just say, I've done Penrith, Newcastle, and the Tigers before the Nines, and I've, a couple of those blokes like Billy Kickout, who I've talked up, have had an absolute blinder. Appy Coruscant, another one. So they've had absolute blinders in the Nines, and I just want to go on record.
But Nines is nothing. Like
it is, but it's giving you. Generally, it's not.
The Titans
but it's
got to the semi-finals, and the Titans aren't getting anything except the fucking spoon this year.
We'll see, but when you're getting it from those kind of guys, it's a little bit different to some bloke you've never heard the name of before, blitzing everyone down the middle. Blake Ferguson was very good in the Nines.
Yeah.
Mason Lino. So there were some guys like that that played very well. But anyway, I just wanted to go on record to say that was before they had killer seasons, because I'm going to killer Nines, because I'm going to look like I've just jumped on the bandwagon.
Oh no, well. No, I'm sure, because we've had a few people remind us that the team lists on NRL.com are a little bit out of date, even for NRL.com. So, yeah, they're pre-recorded because obviously we've all got jobs and you and Josh have got kids and shit, so we obviously can't sit down and do those every 2 days. So a lot of those we've recorded in chunks of sessions. So yeah, a lot of them, there might be some changes that happen in between when we record and when they're released, but we try our best.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Bogan, you carry a fair bit of that load. Me and Josh, you just jump on and talk a bit of shit.
Oh, to be fair,
it falls back to you.
I've been doing fuck all editing on the team previews. I've sort of got a little bit of a template set up, so there's not as much care. And when it comes to trying to get the sound right and shit like that, as opposed to the regular episodes, which I spend a fair amount of time on. But I will say I have got an additional 2 days off work with the Canberra Day long weekend, just so I can fucking edit the team reveal video and get it out to people Wednesday morning. So
beautiful.
Barring any technical problems, that'll be in people's inboxes on Wednesday morning. So still got a day and a bit to pick your teams before the footy kicks off on Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, thanks everyone for your support so far. I think our subscribers have jumped a fair bit in the last few weeks, which is great to see. Jump in our groups.
Tell all your friends, tell all your enemies, tell your grandma, tell your dog, tell your cat, tell anyone that you listen. BJ and Game Day, Supercoach.
Hey guys, Joshy here. Thanks very much for joining us for another episode of BJ on Game Day. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube for all your notifications. If you do want to follow us on Facebook, you can find us there at BJ on Game Day, and on Twitter we're at BJ on Game Day as well. So guys, we'd really like your support with that. Follow us so we can know you guys are enjoying the content. Thanks very much.